Hello, this is Amitosh. Today is 21st September 2022. This is Technology Channel. This video is about evaluating Apigee for enterprises and solutioning. There is no better place to know about Apigee other than the Google itself. So what does Google say about it? What is Apigee? Apigee is a platform for developing and managing APIs by fronting services with a proxy layer. Apigee provides an abstraction or facade for your backend service APIs and provides security, rate limiting, quotas, analytics, and more. This is at the top level. We'll have a quick review of this at a very top level. So at the high level architecture, the following image shows the high level architecture of Apigee. So this is the Apigee service hosted by Google, Apigee runtime. These are backend services, client apps communicating both ways to and fro, GCP services, and there is a administration and development communications. So all this is part of a bigger picture of Apigee. Apigee services APIs that you use to create, manage, and deploy your API proxies. Apigee runtime, a set of containerized runtime services in Kubernetes cluster and Google maintains. All API traffic passes through and is processed by these services. Apigee uses components including GCP services, provides identity management, logging, analytics, metrics, and project management functions. Backend services used by your apps to provide runtime access to data for your API proxies. So these are the products, Apigee products, Apigee X and Apigee Hybrid or Apigee Edge. Apigee Edge for public and private cloud. Apigee Edge for public cloud is hosted in Apigee's cloud, managed by Apigee. Apigee Edge for private cloud, customer's private data center, managed by customer. Apigee X, Google Cloud, hosted in Google Cloud, managed by Apigee. Apigee Hybrid, both Google Cloud and customer's private data center. Apigee manages the management plane and customer manages the runtime plane. So this is a comparison between Apigee Hybrid versus Apigee Edge for private cloud. The analytics, the API, proxy gateway, persistence. So for analytics, it uses Fluentd and Universal Data Collection Agent UDCA and UAP, Unified Analytics Platform. For Edge for private, it is Cupid and Postgres servers. API proxy gateway, this is message processor, same for API Edge. For private cloud, persistence, Cassandra, again Cassandra node or ring. For deployment, it is the synchronizer ensures that API proxy configurations, environment information, and other data is kept up to date between the management plane and runtime plane. For private edge, it is Zookeeper. Administrative user interface Apigee UI is a containerized app hosted on the management plane. Apigee Edge UI is hosted on management server. Load balancing and issue ingress controller hands request to router message processor. Containerized app in the runtime plane. Again, for Edge, it is router. APGX APIs are accessed through management server and Mart. Mart interacts with the local Cassandra data store and serves as an API provider for APGX APIs to access and manage runtime data entities. For on this side, it is management server. Metrics, single Prometheus server per cluster for all services. Each component configured with JMX. So these are the features, the trust stores and policies, OAuth, So this is again going to some basic APG terminology. The Google Cloud projects form basis for creating, enabling, and using all Google Cloud services, including managing APIs, enabling billing, adding and removing collaborators, and managing permissions for Google Cloud resources. You need to create a Google Cloud project before you can create and provision an APG organization. So Google Cloud systems are the you know main target for this also. Provisioning. Provisioning is a process of for installing and configuring APG. Organization. An organization is a container for everything related to APG in your Google Cloud project, including API proxies, services, and the resources needed to support them. You create your organization using provisioning. An APG organization is not the same as Google Cloud organization. Environment. An APG environment is a runtime execution context that is an isolated software environment within an organization where you can create and deploy API proxies using APG. You can create multiple environments in an organization. Environment group. An environment group is a group of APG environments with a single host name. The host name can be used to call API proxies deployed to an environment in the environment group. API proxy. An API proxy is an interface between incoming requests and backend services the API provides. The proxy uses policies to process all incoming requests and outgoing responses from the backend. Instance. An APG instance or runtime instance is a deployment of the APG software. You create an instance during provisioning and can later add more instances. Instances correspond to Google Cloud regions, and there can only be one APG instance per cloud region. Policy. A policy is a processing step that is executed by an API proxy. APG provides many predefined policies that perform various API tasks such as transforming message formats or enforcing access control. Architecture side, we see that APG, so this is about during provisioning, components are configured and created that allow bidirectional communication between a virtual private cloud network managed by you and a virtual private cloud network managed by APG. So this is APG organization, this is customer VPC and API customers, and internet. So there is no, the process says there is no communication as such. So your VPC and APG's VPCs cannot communicate with each other without further configuration. So we would need configurations for this communication to happen. To enable communications between VPCs, we use VPC network peering. Network peering allows internal IP address connectivity across two VPC networks regardless of whether they belong to same project or the same Google Cloud organization. After the network peering step is completed, communication is possible between the two VPCs. So VPC network peering is required. So this is the APG organization. There is APGX runtime Google project. The runtime is here, APG runtime. Network address translation. This is showing ingress, load, private instances, IP, load balancing. And these are the backend services. There is customer cloud and there are API consumers and clients. So to route traffic through from client apps on the internet to APG, we use global external HTTPS load balancer, XLB. And XLB can communicate across GCP projects such as between the customer GCP project and APG GCP project using cross-project service referencing. You could also provision a managed instance group of virtual machines that serve as network bridge. So this is serving as this image element shows the virtual machine acting as a network bridge. The MIG VMs have the capability to communicate bidirectionally across the peered networks. So they develop the capability to communicate bidirectionally. When provisioning is complete, apps on the internet talk to the load balancer and load balancer talks to the bridge and the bridge VM talks to the APG network. Now in this configuration, traffic is routed from APG to a workload running in your internal VPC. In this case, communication to your internal VPC does not go through NAT or IP of egress. So on the internal side, it does not go through the NAT. Instead, you can route the traffic through one of the Apigee instance IPs. This is the illustration, shows the lifecycle of API proxy call as it moves through the provisioned Apigee system components. A client app calls an Apigee API proxy. The request lands on a global level 7 external load balancer. This is level 7 load balancer. The load balancer is configured with an external public IP and a TLS certificate. So this is configured with the same. The load balancer sends a request to the virtual machine. The VM serves as a bridge between your VPC and Google's VPC, where we have a Apigee runtime. The VM sends the request to Apigee, which processes the API proxy requests. So this runtime processes the requests. Apigee sends the request to backend services, and the response is sent back to client all through the channel. So this is what is basically the summary over here. And we can go ahead and see what are the basic questions we get on the Google communities and on a Google search here. So Apigee is a platform for developing and managing APIs by fronting services with a proxy layer. Apigee provides an abstraction or facade for your backend service APIs and provides security, rate limiting, quotas, analytics, and more. Is Apigee an API gateway? Apigee is an API gateway management tool offered by Google to exchange data across cloud services and applications. Apigee can do the SOAP to REST or REST to SOAP conversion, but is not replacement of enterprise service bus or message broker, which involves complex transformations for legacy modernization. Apigee enhances the availability of your APIs by providing built-in support for load balancing and failover across multiple backend server instances. Target servers decouple concrete endpoint URLs from target endpoint configurations. What language is Apigee? So Apigee Edge provides support to Java and Node. Is Apigee a reverse proxy? Apigee generates reverse proxies based on following information: URL of the backend service, URI path that uniquely identifies the API that will be exposed by the API proxy to consumer apps. You can use Java methods to access Apigee flow variables. If you want to access key value map information, use a KVM policy, assign key value map values to flow variables, and then you can access the flow variables from within the Java callout. What are the competitors? Competitors and alternatives to Apigee API management platform are Postman API platform, Amazon API gateway, MuleSoft Anypoint platform, Microsoft Azure API management, WSO2 API manager, Xway Amplify API management, IBM API Connect, SAP integration suite. Is Apigee part of Google Cloud? With Apigee integration, Google Cloud brings together the best of API management and integration. All is a unified platform leveraging cloud native architecture principles that allows enterprise IT teams to scale their operations, accelerate developer velocity, and increase the speed to market. Google acquired Apigee. This is a Google solution. Apigee as SaaS available on GCP and AWS region. Again, on the authentication, basically, how does Apigee authentication work from the top level? This authentication first requests an access token using resource owner credentials, user and password, and then uses the token to access the protected resources. To configure this authentication type, there are a set of points you have to do, so which we would not go in detail as well. A target server definition is basically a name for a backend URL, and you can set a different URL for each environment. By using target servers, you can reference the target server name instead of hard coding the backend URL. What are the components of Apigee? It consists of API runtime, monitoring and analytics, and developer services that provide a comprehensive infrastructure for API creation, security, management, and operation. Apigee is not open source and is built on enterprise Java. This is a Google solution. So we have to create an API proxy using Apigee UI, deploy API proxy to an environment, test your API proxy to make sure you are on track, challenge target endpoint so your policy has more interesting data to play with, add a policy to convert the response from XML to JSON. These are some of the key steps. What are Apigee proxies? So we expose APIs on Apigee by implementing API proxies. API proxies decouple the app facing API from backend services, shielding those apps from backend code changes. As you make a backend changes to your services, apps continue to call the same API without any interruption. Why is it called reverse proxy? So a reverse proxy does the exact opposite of what a forward proxy does. While a forward proxy proxies on behalf of clients or requesting hosts, a reverse proxies on behalf of servers. What is a service callout in Apigee? The service callout policy lets you call to another service from your API proxy flow. You can make callouts to either an external service, such as an external RESTful service endpoint, or internal services, such as an API proxy in the same organization and environment. Now, one big question is Google Apigee free? So you have to check on this from time to time. You can evaluate Apigee for free for 60 days. Currently, there is no runtime SLA provided for evaluations, and there is no migration to paid offerings. So Apigee is an API gateway. What is an API gateway? API gateway is an API management tool that sits between a client and a collection of backend services. An API gateway acts as a reverse proxy to accept all application programming interface calls, aggregate the various services required to fulfill them, and return the appropriate result. What is equivalent to Apigee in AWS? So according to Slackshare community, Amazon API gateway has a broader approval, being mentioned in 167 company stacks and 62 developer stacks, compared to Apigee, which is listed in fewer company stacks and developer stacks. An API gateway is a middleware that makes available backend services to mobile, web, and external clients via a set of protocols, and commonly through a set of RESTful application programming interfaces. So there are range of questions on the Google which provides better insight and information we can go through in detail. I think from the top level, these are good enough to give you an idea as a beginner what exactly Apigee is. So we will end our vlog here, and I would be keep making the better vlogs and provide you better technology informations. So Apigee was founded in 2004, and in 2016 Google acquired this, and this has been a recent point of interest for many enterprises, given the fast emergence of cloud-based solutions, which various corporations are basing their infrastructure on. Please do like my videos, subscribe to the channel, and share the videos. This is all for today. Thank you so much.